Okay. Well, good evening. Grace and peace be unto you from God our Father and Lord Jesus the Christ. It is indeed a joy and delight to be in your midst and presence. I certainly honor the angelic and visionary leadership of this house in the person of Pastor Herman Washington and Lady Washington. Delighted to be in your midst, in your presence. Come on, let's praise the Lord for both of them tonight. I also want to acknowledge those persons from Hollywood who have snuck away from, we call her the enforcer. She's the chairman of our deaconess board, and she is in charge of our Wednesday night prayer service. And she's the enforcer in our church. And she'll come looking for you. She'll come looking for you. And she expects leadership to be in prayer service. And how Elder Green and Trustee Green got away from Hollywood tonight, I don't know. I guess they expect me to vouch for them tonight and get them out of trouble. But I ain't messing with Sister Williams. Beloved, thank you so much for the opportunity to return and to be a part of this fellowship and this annual observation that takes place in the life of this ministry. I certainly salute your pastor, and I am always happy to be in his presence. He is one of my preferred friends. You know, we have many associates, but not a whole lot of friends. And I am delighted to say that Pastor Washington is a dear and abiding friend. I experienced some death in my family this year with the loss of Pastor Arthur Luter, who is my cousin, and funeralized him both in Ossining and in Florida, took his remains back to Florida. And your pastor was so genuine, so authentic, so warm and available for me at the end of last year during that time of challenge. And I want to thank him for his friendship and his support during that time. I am not sure that we always recognize the genius that God plants amongst us. And such is the case as it relates to the leadership and the pastorate of this congregation by Pastor Herman Washington. And I hope you realize and recognize the awesome gift that God has placed in your midst. We oftentimes tell the story of the master who goes away and leaves a certain amount of talents to his servants. And when he returns, certain of those servants have multiplied those talents. And of course, in that story, there are servants who have 5, 2, and 1 talent. And of course, the one with 5 turns it into 10. You have a pastor who has 20 talents. He's twice the person in the parable story that we know of in the Bible. And rarely a week goes by without me watching Shiloh via the internet. And I glean from his preaching. And I kind of have it on a delay schedule. I dress it up, Lutherize it a little bit. And rarely do my people recognize that it came from Herman Washington the week before. By the time I deal with it, I try and disguise it. He has literally become the icon and the image of preacher for our Empire Baptist Missionary Convention. And those of us who are members of that convention, when we think preacher, we think Herman Washington. And so I hope you value his ministry as much as those of us who are scattered around the island appreciate him to an enormous degree. I've said to him, and I say to you, Shiloh, and I'm not saying this because he's here, I've said it a number of occasions, you have the best preacher on Long Island. The best preacher. Best preacher in New York. Hello, sir. Best preacher in the country. Hello, somebody. Now, I got some other friends in some other places. I better stop right there. We're streaming. Let me close my affirmation of your pastor with this public thank you and appreciation to you, Shiloh. I want to thank you for investing in the future and the prosperity of my grandchildren. I have two boys, Alexander the Great and Ivan the Great, two youngsters, 4 and 3 years old. And I want to thank you because you have Herman Washington here. And the reason I want to thank you is because I've developed an investment fund for my grandchildren. And I've sat their mothers down and I've given both of them a box, and on top of the box there's a card. And the card says, do not open until 2055. Do not open until 2055. And I've said to them, don't touch the box, don't open it, just hold on to it. Now in 2055, my grandchildren will be grown and possibly having grandchildren of their own. And I've said to their mothers, there is something in this box that's going to make life easy for Alexander and Ivan. The only catch here is that you can't open it until 2055, and they have agreed. And so they have agreed not to open the box until 2055. And in 2055, they can open the box. And in the box, I have placed mechanisms for them to be able to retire early. They'll be in their 50s, but they'll be able to retire early. Hello, somebody. We just need to watch out for our kids and our grandkids. And so I don't want them to have to struggle like I am right now. You know, I'm just trying to find a place to land. I'm 64. I'll be 65 this year. I'm just trying to find a place to land. Hello, somebody. I ain't trying to make no noise. I ain't compete with nobody. I'm just trying to get to the finish line. Hello, somebody. And find some place warm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so I don't want my grandkids to struggle. So I got a box. I got a box. And I told them, don't open the box until 2055. Now let me tell you what I have in the box. What I have in the box, I have a collection of preaching videotapes of Herman Washington. that he preached at the Empire Baptist Convention from 2005 to 2014. Hello, somebody. Yeah. Now, listen. That's going to be gold. See, he gonna be gone. She gonna be. That's gonna be rich. Hello. And I told my grandchildren, you just hold on to this. And in time, it'll come back to bless. It'll come back to bless. Beloved, let me take the remainder of the time that we have together tonight. I want to do a couple of things over the course of the next few evenings. I want to, and my members, I'm sure, are looking and laughing at me, Pastor, because I am not a manuscript speaker. I stand the vast majority of the time without notes, and that's just my way and my style. But I've written some things down for the next 2 nights that I want to share. And I know they're not accustomed to me using notes, but I don't want to miss anything. One of the reasons I don't preach from a manuscript, I can't see no more. I can't see. I have this Urkel complex. When I put on glasses, it just kind of demeans me to some extent. And so one of the reasons I don't use a manuscript is because I can't see without glasses. And since I'm so vain and have so much pride, but I wrote some things down because, beloved, there are some items that I dare not miss this evening. And I want to argue from the premise that we are in crises. Now, permit me to be brutally frank, and this is no assessment and certainly no observation of the ministry here at Shiloh, but if you would allow me to be transparent and honest, there are some things we're dealing with in Amityville and in Queens that we don't like to talk about as preachers. And I want to thank you for your patience this evening. I was just a few minutes late, but the Lord has blessed us to have a second congregation in Queens. And so on Monday night, we do a Bible study in Amityville, and then on Wednesday night, we do a Bible study in Queens. And when Pastor called and reminded me that we had talked about this, I just had not remembered. And he said, I'm just calling to remind you about next week. I said, yes, sir, yeah. And so we adjusted our Bible study. Normally our Bible study is from 7 to about 8:15, 8:30 in Queens. And we shifted that to 6 o'clock so that we could be here tonight with you for these 3 evenings. And so thank you for your patience. I want to argue that we're in a crisis. And I understand the crisis, Pastor, from an academic, scholastic point of view. It doesn't heal the hurt or cause the pain to diminish itself in any kind of way. And if you'll allow me, I want to talk about some of the things that we as pastors don't ordinarily talk about, or we're not anxious to talk about. Pastor Washington knows that there's an annual event that takes place in June called the annual Hampton Ministers Conference. And some of the best preaching in the country goes on at that conference, and it's been going on for years. As a youngster and young preacher, I attended that conference, and right outside of Ogden Hall, there's this large oak tree. And between the sessions, the pastors in the past have gathered under this tree. This is before air conditioning was available on the campus of Hampton University. And so between the morning sessions, we would refresh ourselves under this oak tree. And this tree got the nickname of being called the Lion Tree. Not lion, L-I-O-N, right. Lion, L-Y-I-N-G. Lying. And on the campus of Hampton, just outside of Ogden Hall, is the Lion Tree. And it's called the Lion Tree because that's where the pastors would gather and describe their ministry to each other under the tree. And they would mishandle the truth and would exaggerate the details of what, am I talking right, Pastor? Listen, and not only exaggerate, but just bold-faced stories. And part of what drives that is this innate sense we have, pride and vanity, where we really want to project that we're doing better than we really are. And because we know that Rarely, if ever, are the persons we're talking to going to be available at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning in our city, in our space. We can make a description that puts us in the best possible light, even if it's not accurate. Hello, somebody. And I want to suggest that we're in a struggle. I know I've been privileged to pastor in Columbus, Ohio, upstate, 20 years in Ohio. I've been back home since 2001, back on a permanent basis since 2006. And here is the harsh reality. The harsh reality is, and if just permit me to be transparent, none of us are seeing the numbers of people that we saw 10 years ago, 12 and 15 years ago. The color of my pews are purple. I'm seeing more purple now than I've ever seen before. And there is an inclination, Deacon, to take what we see personally and assume that what we're seeing is a deficit on our part. It is an assault on our self-esteem, self-value, and the way we look at ourselves. It's not something we can talk about. We can't even talk about it with our friends because we're so busy trying to project, and they're so busy projecting the same thing in response, until rarely are we able to be honest and say, you know, I'm feeling some kind of way because I'm not seeing what I used to see. And I keep going to God and asking God, Lord, is it I? Where am I missing it? And we do all kinds of introspection in terms of our preaching, our competency, our spirituality, our morality. I mean, we go through these mental gymnastics trying to repair what we assume is wrong with us. Not realizing that we are in a cycle of history that has put us in this place. And I don't care who you are. Everybody's seeing the same thing. Maybe on different levels. But everybody from T.D. Jakes to the storefront. Come on here, somebody. And rather than beat up on ourselves, we need to look at where we are, how we got here, so that we can ask the question, what can we do to remedy the situation we're in? I am convinced, beloved, this is not the first time the church has been in trouble as it relates to church attendance and support. And one of the things that I hope to demonstrate to you tonight, if you'll allow me to be just a bit of a church historian, is, you know, I ran out of my Queens ministry so fast trying to get here. I left my iPad, and they just brought it to me. So I've been bluffing for the last 10 minutes until I've been bluffing until I can get here and get my stuff. Oh, okay now. All right. Let me do some teaching tonight. Woo, I thought it sounded pretty good, though. Yeah, I just waiting on my help to get here. Waiting on my help. I didn't want to rely on my notes because I can't read my own writing. But beloved, let me help you with this. Let me help you with this for just a moment, if I can. Because, Pastor, This is not the first time the church has been in trouble. And the truth of the matter is that approximately 500 years ago, the church experienced near extinction. The church literally almost went out of business. And sometimes by looking at the past, it will help us with our right now. Without being exhaustive, the church picks a fight in 1049 AD behind the preaching of Pope Urban II. He was trying to dismantle the hostility that was going on in the Western world, civilization, and church by relieving the conflict between European noblemen who were so territorial until they took up arms in order to take what their neighbors had. And to disarm their conflict with each other, Urban II preached a sermon about a damsel in distress by the name of Jerusalem that had been taken hostage by what would later be known as the Ottoman Empire. And Urban described Jerusalem as this damsel that was in the clutches of Islam that needed to be rescued. And he encouraged a military campaign called the Crusades, which would last for about 250 years. The Crusades ended with the rise of the Protestant Reformation. And the last time that I was here, I took time to kind of go over the details of the Protestant Reformation. But here's where I want to go tonight. On the heels of the Protestant Reformation, we went into a segment of history known as the Age of Enlightenment. Also known as the Age of Reason. Pivotal names that emerged during this time were names like Francis Bacon, Rousseau, Voltaire, John Locke. And beloved, what these individuals argued was a scholastic discipline known as epistemology. Ooh. Epistemology was the belief that nothing was true unless there was evidence to support its truth. This stood antithetical to the church community because the church stood on the premise that if you need proof, it ain't faith. Are you with me? Yes, sir. That the delivery of documented evidence and proof removes the need for faith. And so the culture, the secular culture, moves in this direction where if it's not provable, it's not true. Now, the church for nearly 1,500 years had been practicing a discipline known as soli ecclesia. Not soli vide, which is going to come a little later on with the Protestant Reformation, but soli ecclesia. Soli ecclesia means only the church. And the church was seen as both icon and arbiter of truth. So a thing was true because the church said it was true. Hello, somebody. And you needed nothing else to prove the truth of a thing other than it being told to you that it was true by the church. Why? Now, one of the reasons this was possible is because the church had what you as an individual did not have. And that was the Bible. And the Bible, it took a monk, watch this, beloved, it took a monk 8 years to make one copy of a Bible. And at that rate, watch where I'm going now. At that rate, in a given village, town, or city, nobody had the Bible but the church. So as an individual member, you never knew what the Bible said. You only knew what the church said that the Bible said. And even then, because you didn't know Latin and the Bible was available in Latin as the Vulgate, and you could not read Latin, you had to take the church's word for what it meant. Hello, somebody. So you never knew what John 3:16 really said. You only knew what the church interpreted to say and mean. Watch this, watch this, watch this. And as a result of that, the church could invent systems of support that were not based on the Bible. And because you didn't have a Bible, you could not contest the campaign or the system because you had nothing to contest it with. Because sole ecclesia, only the church was the authority of truth. All right, can I give you an example? Can I give you an example? The church said that every day you sin, and that you pay for your sins on a daily basis. And I think I made the example last year, being here in Rockville Center, that the system of the Roman Catholic Church was that every day you go to the church, go in a closet called a confessional, and you told the priest your sin. And then the priest would tell you how much to pay in order to repair that sin. And then he would remind you that the next day is another day, and you were going to sin the next day, so you need to come back and confess your sin the next day and pay for that sin on tomorrow. Hello, somebody. Now listen, we live off a weekly stream of revenue. Hello, so any trustees in here? I think I said this last year. Can you imagine what kind of church you would have in Shiloh if you could get everybody in here to pay for their sins on a daily basis? on a daily Okay. Somebody sees structures going on. Why do you think St. Agnes is looking? Wait. Okay. My point is that in response to this era, the age of enlightenment robbed the church of that kind of authority. And names like Bacon and Rousseau and Voltaire and Locke began to argue for what today is recognized as secular humanism. Now here's the point that I want to make. The point that I want to make is that in the wake of that, it robbed the church of its vitality, its life, and its support on the part of the people. And the church nearly went extinct. 1600s, early 1700s. And it takes a revival movement, watch where I'm going now, called the First Great Awakening. With names like John Wesley, and George Whitefield, to rescue the church from the clutches of enlightenment. That without some church response, the church would have faded. And so there is a debt that we owe to the likes of a Wesley and a Whitefield, a Jonathan Edwards, who in the New World launched this revival movement. First Great Awakening, 1740 to 1770. Second Great Awakening, 1820 to 1840. If it hadn't been for those movements, and if the church had not decided, we've got to do something different. Because if we continue to do what we've always done, we're going to lose this battle and we're going to lose the war. Hello, somebody. And since church at that time was a settled assembly that took place during a quieted hour on Sunday, these individuals took to the street, pitched tents, went outdoors, started street meetings in order to rescue the church. Because they and I'm not specifically saying that's the remedy today. What I am saying is that we have to think differently about what we're doing, because what this movement did to the church then is what the age of information is doing to the church today. The reason we're seeing what we're seeing is because the age of information in these last 20 years is impacting the church the same way the movement of epistemology impacted the church 400 years ago. And if we don't have a third Great Awakening, and if you don't understand and see that Herman Washington is a pioneer, and he's the George Whitefield and the Jonathan Edwards of the new millennium. Can I talk up in here? So for the next few moments, permit me to talk about success in crises. Success. How do you accomplish success in the midst of a crisis? There are very few things that Jesus told us to chase. And maybe part of our problem is that we spend so much time chasing what we were never told to chase and ignoring what Jesus told us to make our priority. I want to argue in your hearing, there's really only one thing that Jesus told us to chase. He said, seek ye first the kingdom of God. So if we ought to chase anything, it ought to be the kingdom. Because the promise of the Lord was that if we seek, chase, pursue the kingdom, then all of these other things that's important to us, that we're looking for, that make up who we are, that impact our vanity, our pride, our ego, Jesus said they'll be added. They will be added unto us. Hello, somebody. We don't acquire them because we chase the crowd, or we chase the plate, or we chase popularity, or we chase notoriety. Jesus said, if we chase the kingdom, if we seek the kingdom and find the kingdom and become citizens of the kingdom, then all the other things we need to make us feel good about ourselves, it will be added. It'll be added. So I've come in part this week to suggest that we transform ourselves, not into sacred celebrities, not individuals who seek to claim the spotlight. Can I talk up in here? Our agenda ought not be that everybody know our name, if they know his name and recognize us as an agent of a name that they know, then all of these other things, can I talk up in here, shall be added unto thee. Let me give you this. Let me give you this. Let me give you this. When you look at the scripture, there is a mispronunciation. There is a mispronunciation that we do that does a disservice to our spirituality. Jesus says, I'll give you the keys to the kingdom. No, that's not what he says. He says, I'll give you the keys of the kingdom. Now, the way we say it, I will give you the key to the kingdom. Listen to the prepositional phrase. The key to the kingdom. I want to argue that what Jesus has given us are principles, strategies, and methodologies that will help us to abide as citizens in the kingdom. That the secret is not a key, but understanding keys. And keys are a metaphor for principles and strategies. Can I talk up in here? So what you ought to be looking for are the strategies and the principles that give you access to the kingdom. All right, come on, let me help you with this. Let me help you with this. See, there is no single event or exercise that's going to unlock the door. I don't care how spiritual you are. Listen, if it's before time on Sunday morning, you can stand out there on Center Street, fall down on your knees, speak in tongues, anoint with oil, and everything else. That door ain't going to open. Why? Because you need... You need... And I want to explore with you what are some of the keys that unlock the door that's keeping you from where you really need to be. Hello, somebody. And I want to suggest to you that if you discover the keys, it will give you access to where you want to go. Can I talk up in here? Two of the keys are management and deployment. Please put that down, because I'll be talking about that for the rest of the week. Management and deployment. Management and deployment. How do you use the resources, the gifts, and the talents that God has placed at your disposal in order to move where you need to move? Now, I have not come just to talk to Pastor Washington, because every last one of us have a circle and a sphere of influence. Yes, sir. Hello, somebody. Yes. The truth of the matter is, Reverend Washington is the senior pastor. But if Shiloh is like most churches I know, there are some other pastors. Oh, come on here, somebody. There are some mini pastors. There are some circle pastors. There are some auxiliary pastors. There are some small group pastors. There are some usher pastors, some missionary pastors, some willing worker pastors. Can y'all hear me up in here? Yeah. So these keys are applicable not just to the upper echelons of leadership in the Lord's house, but for every person that the Lord has called to do a work in the kingdom. There's a Latin term I want you to know, and the term is vocatio. Vocatio. It is a Latin word that produces our English word vocation. And it literally means what God has called you to do. That's why preachers say, once we in the ministry, I've been called to the ministry. It goes back to Martin Luther and this whole idea of we are summoned into service. Vocatio, we are called. But listen, the vocatio of God is not limited to the pulpit. That's right. Hello, somebody. Every Christian ought to recognize that you have a calling on your life. Can I talk up in here? Every Christian has to recognize that they have a calling on their life. Now, your calling is not identical to somebody else's calling. See, if you don't know your calling, you won't stay in your lane. And that's why we have auto accidents in the Lord's house. Because so many folk are bumping into one another, trying to manage somebody else's calling without looking at what their call. Oh, come on here.
Yes, sir.
Am I helping anybody?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Listen, you ought to be consulting God and asking the Lord, what is my calling? Because if you understand your calling, you'll know your lane.
Yes, sir.
And you'll stay where God has put you, rather than where your mind and your flesh leads you to.
Yes, sir.
Hello, somebody.
Yes, sir.
We are so quick to want to judge somebody else. But we do so in order to distract from being judged ourselves. Okay, can I just give you a secret? I don't know your politics, but let me help you understand. The reason we are a neurotic nation is because Washington has decided that every day we're going to get something new to deal with. And the reason, the strategy behind that is that if I can give you something new to deal with, it'll cause you to forget.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, let me.
Yes, sir.
Woo.
Yes, sir.
So, beloved, you have to see what God is doing in your life. Because, please put this down, the way you see a thing determines how you respond to it. Ooh. Let me say it again. Let me slow my roll. The way you see a thing determines how you respond to it. So if you see it as a catastrophe, that's the way you're going to respond. You're going to respond with panic. But if you see it as a crisis, watch this, that the Lord has already warned you about, then you cannot be surprised with what you know is already coming.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Come on here, somebody. All right? When I was in high school, I was a wrestler. And while I was wrestling, the coach always said, anticipate the opponent's next move.
Yes, sir.
Because if I accurately anticipate what the opponent is going to do, two things happen. Number one, I ain't surprised when he does it.
Yes, sir.
But then number two, I've already readied a response for what he does.
That's right.
There is nothing the devil can throw at you that you ought not have a response to what the devil does.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can I talk up in here? See, the way you see a thing determines how you respond to it. Understand this, beloved. You are citizens of the kingdom. You're not citizens of the world.
That's right.
Now, I know we have abused and exploited this passage of scripture, but let me try and do some proper exegesis. When Jesus says, be ye in the world, but not of the world, what Jesus is trying to intimate to you is that you're not subject to the rules and the regulations that the world has to abide by. That as a citizen of the kingdom, he has exempted you from a lot of the stuff that everybody else has to deal with. And he has warned you in advance that you're going to have troubling days. Hello, somebody. I am like any and everybody else. But I don't panic
Yes, sir.
when I see trouble.
Yes, sir.
Can I talk up in here?
Yes,
Because here is what the kingdom wants you to do. The kingdom does not want you to panic. The kingdom wants you to see the crises as an opportunity.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, Lord.
Yes, sir.
Watch this. Watch this. We are at our best
Yes, sir.
when we're challenged.
Yes, sir.
Hello, somebody.
Yes, sir.
Listen, if I take a knife and cut you, there are ingredients
Yeah.
in your body
Yeah.
that's designed to heal yourself.
Yes, sir. Talk, sir.
If you never get to a doctor, if you don't get no medicine, depending upon how severe the injury is.
Yes, sir.
But the body is designed to heal itself. But can I show you this? If you cut me and I ignore it, I will bleed out.
Yeah.
But if you cut me and I know what to do,
Yes, sir.
there are platelets in the body that will coagulate, create a scab, staunch the flow of blood, and save my life. But this is what's going to blow your mind. The platelets can't work until I apply pressure.
Talk, sir.
So the next time somebody cuts you,
Yes, sir.
just put some pressure on it. Next time somebody rolls their eyes at you, just put some pressure on it. Next time somebody lies on you, just put some pressure on it. Next time somebody gossips about you, just put some pressure on it. Because if you put pressure on it, it will heal. All right. Pastor, what time are we out of here? No. Whew. That's why Jesus says, I am going to give you peace. In the midst of the storm. Hello, somebody. Because what causes other folk to flip out causes you to settle down. The other week, I was on my way back to New York, and I was in a flight, and the plane began to rock from side to side, and the pilot came on the PA and said, I apologize for the rough ride, but there's some choppy air just ahead, and it's going to get a little rough. And it got rough. And it got so rough, so severe, until the baggage bins above your head, they flew open. And the bags and the shoes and the coats came flying out, scattered all over the cabin. Folks started yelling. Folks started screaming. Hello, so I had a weak moment. You know, I wish, mother. I had a weak moment. I wish I could tell you that my faith is always intact. But that plane would do, ah! Not now, Lord, not now, not now. But let me tell you what helped me. What helped me was in the midst of the storm, the choppy air and the turbulence, the pilot came back on the line and he said, we're in the midst of a rough ride, but give me a few minutes. I'm going to climb to a higher altitude. And when I get to the higher altitude, I won't be in the storm, but I'll be riding over the storm. And I'm trying to tell somebody tonight, if you let me holler just one time, the next time you're in a storm, don't you panic like everybody else, but just go a little bit higher. Because if you go higher, you'll fly over. Oh, come on here, somebody. All right, okay. Let me give you these 5 items. 5 items. I want to give you the benefits of a crisis. Benefits of a crisis, and I'm going to let you go. Woo. Number 1, leadership is tested in the midst of struggle. leadership is tested. Woo! It's not by accident that the root word in this, the root in this word test is the root for testimony. Can I tell you what your testimony is? Your testimony is the story of how you survive your test.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so if you don't have a test, you can never have a testimony. Oh, come on here, somebody. All right, number two. Whoo. Crises is the incubator for leadership. Oh, glory. Crises is the incubator. You know what an incubator does? It nurtures what's on the inside so that what's on the inside will eventually be able to survive on the outside. Can I talk up in here? Listen, nobody is going to follow you if you ain't never been through nothing. Can I talk up in here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
People don't want a bunch of platitudes and what ought to be and how it should be. But I need to know when you were down, when you were out, when you had no money coming in, how did you survive? How did you, oh, can I talk up in here? Crises is the incubator for leadership. You can only lead when you've been through something.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Come on, let me give you three more and I'm gone. Woo. Crises is the source of leadership development. What you eventually want to be able to say is how I got over. Well, watch this. You know what? The saints did have it right. My soul looks back. In what? I have to wonder, how in the world? Come on here, somebody. Am I the only one? When I think about what the Lord saved me, listen, when the Lord saved me, it ain't because he didn't have something else to do. Can I talk over there? I know I'm a preacher's kid, grew up on Long Island, and I acted saved all my life. But there was a season, right after high school, I got away from Daddy's house. And when I got away from Daddy's house, there are two things I said I wasn't going to do no more. One, I wasn't going to take out the garbage, because that was my chore. I had to take out the garbage. And the other was, I wasn't going to church. Hello, somebody. I know I'm a son of Hollywood. But, beloved, the Lord didn't call me at Hollywood. He didn't call me in the comfort and the convenience of a pastor's house, in the interior of a parsonage. I was 600 miles away, in the middle of Ohio. Didn't know which way to turn, where to go, what to do. And the songs that I heard my mama sing when I was a little boy came back to me, and my soul looked back in wonder, because I knew it wasn't me that I got over, but my soul looked back in wonder in how I got over. And can I tell you this? Can I tell you this? It was a rhetorical question. I asked, my soul looked back and how I got over, but I knew if it had not been for the Lord on my soul. I'm sorry. Woo. Put this down.
Yes, sir.
Crisis puts demands on untapped potential. It put How long have you been lazy? Come on. How long have you had it so well, so good, so convenient, so comfortable? Never had to strain, never had to stretch. Never had to go the extra mile. Never had to test your faith. Hello, so you listen, you knew there was something inside of you, but there was no occasional situation that brought it out.
Yes, sir.
Crises will put demands on stuff that you know is on the inside that has to work its way. And then finally tonight, crisis reveals what you really believe. I'm through. Wait a minute. Can you get this? Can you get this? All of us have a professional religious demeanor. We know the rhetoric so well.
Yes, sir.
It falls off of our lips
Yeah.
with little or no effort.
Yes, sir.
How are you today? Living for the Lord? How are you this morning? I'm just working for Jesus. We have all of these coined religious phrases that we use that's intended to establish our spiritual identity. Because we want folk to think we deep.
Come on, preacher.
That we go to the well every day.
Yes, sir.
That we are Mary's baby sister. But when you get in a crisis, it will strip away the mask and everything else you hiding behind. And what you believe on the inside will have to work its way to the outside. Am I talking right? You listen, you will reach a point in your life, hello somebody, where the rhetorical language won't work. Hello somebody, where you have to know him. Oh, come on. You have to know him for yourself. Can I talk up in here? It'll strip away everything that you're using to make folk think that you're more than you are.
Yes, sir.
When the reality is, you know. Listen, there's some times, I'm just being real. There's some times I don't feel like being pastor. There are some times, I'm talking about myself. Don't even look in pastor's direction. I'm talking about myself. There are some times when you get on my damn nerves. Whoa, hello, somebody. See, it will, listen, sometimes, well, I better quit right now. It will strip away and reveal who you really are. And if you don't know him for yourself, can I talk up in here? You got to know him for yourself. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow night.